Hello everybody, and welcome to day 120 of the road to 2konchess.com. Today we are currently sitting at 1900 flat, so let's go ahead and jump into our 10-minute game for the day. Now as the game is going along, if you guys have comments for how you would have played this one differently, definitely let me know down below. If you guys enjoy the video, hit the like button, and then finally, if you have not yet, subscribe to the channel, and that just helps me make sure that you don't miss any of my future content. So today we get a Sicilian, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the Alapin Sicilian. Our opponent opts to go with d5, which is one of the main lines, and I believe here the move is d4, after which, if they choose to take on d4, we'll develop knight to f3. Oftentimes what you see here is you see bishop comes out. I don't see this variation very often, though. So what I'm more tempted to do is I'm actually still tempted to play knight to f3. I assume the idea is the bishop is going to come out. Yeah, this is just a very odd move order. I think here I still like the move. What do I like here? I just gave up a pawn. So I suppose I could take c captures d4. This check is a little annoying, but it's not the end of the world. Our opponent takes. I think I'm going to go queen captures d4, offering a trade of the queens, and our opponent declines. Now in this position, I could develop again. And I could insist upon them trading with a move like maybe knight to c3, attacking the queen a second time. And I'm not going to allow them declining the queen trade to dictate my game. I'm just going to try the best I can to get ahead in development, play some solid chess, and go from there, really. Next moves could be, bishop to e3. Bishop to c4, going after this corner. So our opponent opts to go queen to e6, which I did not expect. I think I'm just going to go bishop to e2. Opponent comes in, attacking the queen. Here I think it makes sense to play the move queen to e3. Now the queens are pinned. If our opponent takes, I develop my dark square bishop. But I think it's highly, highly unlikely that they actually do that. They could potentially try and block, but instead they bring their bishop out to b4. If I take now, the light square bishop can come in. Alternatively, I could castle. And I'm going to do just that. My idea is castles. If bishop takes knight, queen takes knight, and if queen takes e2, I have rook to e1. Defended by the knight, pinning the queen to the king. And it's more just trying to play on the idea that our pieces are better developed. Now here, obviously that variation doesn't work. And I think at this point we do need to make a decision about the queens. So I'm going to go ahead and trade the queens off. Queen captures e6. If our opponent takes the knight, which is unlikely, now it leaves me a question with what to do with my knight. And honestly here, I think I just want to develop another piece. But if I develop another piece, and it's not defending this, then it creates some issues. If I play out here and takes, pawn takes, knight comes in, attacks the weakness, And my bishop looks kind of silly over here. If I play bishop to d2, I expect our opponent's going to play, rook to d8. I could try and go knight to d1 and knight to e3. But I think that's a touch slow. But honestly, it's just a better square for the knight. So I'm going to do that, knight to d1, trying to play knight to d3, knight to e3, I'm sorry. And then we'll figure it out from there. I don't have to do anything too complicated here. Let's go knight to e3 now. Improving our knight. Knight to g5 makes sense here. Bishop to d2 makes sense to try and trade the dark square bishops off. With the way my opponent has played so far, I would expect that they're very patient, which I can respect. And it tells me that they will likely just try and keep pieces on. So h6 is a little bit of a slow move. I'm going to play bishop to d2. If our opponent takes, we're taking back with the knight, and then we'll bring the knight in. We're actually maybe even back to f3. But I just find their knight kind of annoying, and ideally I would like to place my bishop on c3. Now, of note, this bishop is loose. So something I'm not going to want to just leave to be exploited at some point. And it makes me a little curious if my opponent plans like a kingside attack with g5 and h5. But there's nothing super particular in this position. Obviously, our opponent can come in after the bishop. I'm just going to go ahead and play knight back to f3. And then I'll probably challenge the rook on the open file with rook a. Maybe rook f to c8, so I can support with rook ac1. The knight comes in. I'm in no real rush to take, although they are going after this bishop. So maybe here I play bishop to c4, but then if I do that, then knight takes. I'm going to go knight captures d4. We see rook captures d4. I'm going to go rook f to d1, challenging the open file. With the way they played, there it is. Let's go rook captures d4. Now my opponent has a bishop staring down here that they have had for a bit. I think it makes sense. If I were to play b3, I would expect rook to d2. And I don't actually see a great way to stop the loss of material here. What are they trying to do? Rook to d2 is the likely move. And if I play bishop c4, rook takes, bishop takes, pawn takes. But if I were to play knight out, that doesn't quite improve my situation. So I'm just going to go b3, playing against my opponent's light square bishop here. Rook to d2 seems like the expected move, I guess. But that does allow for bishop to c4. And if trades knight takes, knight to, or if b5, then I try and bring my knight in. So what we very well might get is we might just get a tactical endgame. We might get a rook endgame out of this. There's rook to d2. I'm going to play bishop to c4. Have the bishops see each other. And if our opponent takes, we're going to take back with the knight. Now the big downside here I'm starting to see is it looks like our opponent is going to have one of these two knight moves. Oh, sorry, no they won't. Because the rook is under attack. So maybe now I have g3, king up. But even at 1900, people are going to blunder a full piece. So we just capture the rook. Snare in continuity, and our opponent resigns. So let's go ahead, let's look at the game review and see how we did. So on today's date, we play with 97.7 and our opponent played with 91.2, which is kind of the nature of playing the Alapin, which is a pretty non-confrontational opening. So after e4, c5, c3, d5, e captures, queen captures, we play the move d4. Now e5 I was not expecting, so I played knight to f3. I was a little bit curious if I can take this pawn. It looks like that's also a book move, and if queen takes, probably queen to e2, so that these are pinned. I could have also blocked with the bishop, or even blocked with, actually I'm going to guess that the dark square bishop is the best block here. But instead, knight to f3, our opponent plays c captures d4, we play c captures d4, e captures, queen captures, and our opponent plays knight to f6. So after knight to c3, queen e6, bishop to e2, which once again, I'm assuming bishop to e3 is probably the better move here. Our opponent played knight c6, queen e3, bishop to e4, castles, castles, and queen captures e6. And you can even see here, is this capture, we lost our advantage simply because we were the one that captures the queens when they were just staring at each other. What I probably could have done here instead was played a move like rook to d1, just developing another piece. But alas, after castles, queen captures e6, bishop captures e6, and knight to d1, I actually got this idea from working through How to Reassess Your Chess, a book by Jeremy Silman. After rook fe8, knight to e3, h6, bishop to d2, bishop captures, knight captures, and rook a to d8. So knight to f3 was my choice. Knight to d4, knight captures, rook fd1. And we just went ahead and traded down. Now, this is where I kind of sank some time as I played b3, which looks like the second best move. And after rook to d2, bishop c4, bishop captures, knight captures, and finally b5. Our opponent hung their rook and resigned the game. Now, what I think probably should have happened here is a move like rook to e2, and after the move king to f1, our opponent may, just play back rook e8, and I would maybe even say like rook to d1 is the way to play here, where we're going to try and, it's a pretty symmetrical game. It really probably will end in a draw with perfect play, but you never know when people are going to make mistakes. But alas, we took our free piece. We got on out of there. We got our win. So if you guys enjoy the content, you can come find me over on twitch.tv/TristanBrown17, where I also stream chess and other gaming content. And on that note, I will see you guys on the next episode.